publish a revised version in what we are calling the early spring, but precisely when will depend on the scale of the responses. If everybody says it's all perfect, then we'll publish it more quickly than that. We'll then invite the shortlisted option promoters to provide updated scheme designs with a deadline around 6 weeks after we publish the revised framework. That sounds tight, but of course people will see from today the framework, and one may assume that the broad lines of it will be similar, so I'm sure people will be getting on with that work anyway. And we will then publish the evidence base, including the business case and the sustainability assessment for each option for formal consultation in the autumn. Now, we've chosen objectives which we believe will enhance the economic, environmental and social benefits of all the schemes, whilst, as far as possible, reducing their disbenefits. We recognise that proposals will not meet each objective to an equal degree, and that an element of trade-off between objectives will therefore be required. It's highly unlikely that any scheme will dominate all the others in every respect. And the key elements that we are looking for can be broken down into 5 components. First of all, the strategic argument, outlining why a proposal is well placed to address the UK's future aviation capacity and connectivity needs, and how it might support the socio-economic development of local areas, regions and the UK as a whole. Regional connectivity is an important issue for us as we've gone around the country. The question of how people in further flung parts of the UK assess the good connectivity that we have in London and the South East is a crucial one, and Alex Salmond was very firm on this point when I met him. Secondly, an airport master plan, providing details of the airfield design and its planned modes of operation, including planned airspace requirements. That's quite important. As you will all know, managing the airspace over London and the South East is complex, and without careful planning, there are schemes which have fallen at that fence. Thirdly, engineering plans with information on costings, energy and utilities requirements, geo-environmental issues and surface development plans. Fourthly, mitigation strategies, including plans to limit the detrimental impacts on the environment and on local communities. And fifthly, what we're calling the development strategy, dealing with how the additional capacity would be funded and project managed to delivery. And that's crucial. We need to have schemes that are practical. In terms of surface transport, scheme promoters will be invited to submit details of proposed surface access strategies, but that will be used as an input into an overall programme of work led by the Commission. And that's because any surface access improvements to support proposed new airport infrastructure are likely to be at least part funded by the government, and the design and appraisal of appropriate surface access measures will require the full involvement of Network Rail and the Highways Agency, among others, and that's something that we at the Commission will organise. The Commission will then use the material submitted to compile a business case and a sustainability assessment for each proposal. That's something we will own. They should capture the information needed to assess a scheme against the objectives proposed, and will ensure the Commission has access to an integrated value for money assessment and materials of the kind that would underpin any future strategic environmental assessment. The compilation of business cases and sustainability assessments will also help to ensure that the Commission's recommendations can be easily considered and, if appropriate, adopted by government. Now, it's clear from this that a lot of work is now required from the scheme promoters. You will see that the draft appraisal framework is itself a substantial document. The approach is consistent with our aim to ensure that we use the time available between now and the next election to take the work forward as far as we can take it. It will allow a new government to hit the ground running if and when it makes a decision on the way forward. The third point I said I would cover this morning is the additional work on the estuary airport option. Evaluating the wide variety of options put to us was not easy. There were over 40 of them involving new airport capacity, and a total of more than 50 submissions, some of which, of course, argued that no capacity was needed. But some of the options were, of course, somewhat far-fetched. Others clearly offered few attractions. Others might not have been implausible, but were inferior to others we decided to take forward in a number of crucial respects. And that allowed us to winnow down the list, and in the annexes to the report and online, we show some of the templates that we used and how we got to the shortlist we ended up publishing. The estuary options were, of course, rather more difficult because these are a different type of proposition. As we said in the interim report, the notion of a once-in-a-century decision to build a new hub airport that would very materially reduce the noise impacts of aircraft flying in and out of London and reduce overflying of the city is compelling. And it's true that noise from Heathrow does affect more people than is the case with other EU airports, though the numbers are falling and projected to fall further. Also, the potential benefits of supporting a shift of London's economic centre of gravity towards the east should be considered. London's population is expected to grow by 1 million in the next forecast period. Where will these people go? Some of them will go in the east, others at the redeveloped Heathrow site, perhaps. That's the proposition which is put forward by advocates of the estuary option. And the combination of these two things are bound to capture the imagination. On the other hand, there are many challenges and risks. There are very significant environmental issues. The area includes many protected habitats. There is flood risk, etc. There is the simple challenge of distance. Even the near estuary sites are over 30 miles from London. There are surface access issues, not just around the airport itself, but getting people into connections elsewhere in London. The cost looks rather daunting. The interim report showed plausible cost estimates in the range of 80 to 100 billion pounds. You can get 2 HS2s for that. And of course, the economic implications are quite serious as well. Will businesses relocate to the estuary, or would they choose to go to some other country? And what are the effects of closing Heathrow and London City, which would almost certainly be required as well? The airspace implications are difficult. As a result, our conclusion was that no proposal put to us presented a sufficiently powerful case to persuade us to recommend it as a credible option to be taken forward now on the same basis as the others. Some, the more remote estuary options, seem so highly unlikely ever to make the cut that we have dismissed them. But we were unable to reach a firm decision on the inner estuary option. We concluded that given the scale and complexity of a scheme of this kind, some further research would be of value to understand better the feasibility and impact of a large new hub airport on or close to the Isle of Grain. Indeed, the lack of evidence in some areas was recognised by a number of the scheme promoters. So we plan to take forward research in a number of areas, and we're today announcing the terms of reference of that further work. There are 4 areas to be considered. First, surface transport, especially the feasibility and cost of new rail routes to central London. Also of access to an estuary airport from elsewhere in the country. Secondly, the environmental implications, including the impact on Natura 2000 sites. What is the feasibility of providing alternative locations? What does the no alternative option language mean in the directives, which says you can only develop on these sites if there is no alternative option? And is the compensation for lost habitats feasible? Thirdly, the socio-economic impact. How far would a new airport in fact contribute to the economic development of East London and the Thames Gateway? We heard very different views on this when we visited the area last year. We'd also look at the implications of closing Heathrow and London City and redeveloping those sites. And fourthly, we'll consider the operations and, if you like, the industry response. Is an estuary airport operationally feasible? And what would influence airlines to locate there? What would the pricing structure have to be? And how would that feed back into the costs and the financial viability? These will be research projects led by the Commission itself. We will use our expert panel for advice as well. But we will also, of course, wish to hear views from interested parties on these issues. And in due course, their views on the outcomes of the new research studies which we will commission. After this further work on the feasibility and the impact, we expect to take a decision on whether or not to add an inner estuary option to our shortlist in the early autumn. We need to meet that timetable so as to allow sufficient time, if it is chosen, for it to be developed to the same standard as the other options and to be subject to the same national consultation without causing undue delay to our overall timetable. We think that's achievable if we get on with it as of today. Whatever decision we eventually reach, we want to ensure that we have carefully considered all the options. So far, I have to say, we've been very impressed by the contributions we've had from a wide range of participants in the debate. Some, of course, are commercial organisations, and the people involved are paid to make their contributions. Many others, like the Commission members themselves, are unpaid and volunteering in the public interest. And I'm convinced that the process benefits from this open and inclusive approach, and that the eventual decision will be better based and more likely to secure broad, if not universal support as a result. Today's conference will help us a lot, so I end where I began by thanking Runways UK for mounting it, and now I look forward to taking your questions.